Welcome to our AI Mastery Greenbelt level series. And we call people at this level cautious tinkerers. And in the presentation I'm about to share, we will address 10 of the most common questions we hear. Now, by now, I hope you've already taken our Greenbelt theory course. And this is really about questions that people are stuck on. And I've learned them the hard way. I've learned from other people that these are stumbling blocks. So my goal is to share the answers to help you move forward. Now, for the record, we do have a paid program. This content is being distributed for free. If you want to learn more about the paid program, we talk about that later. My idea is simple. There's a lot of noise and confusion out there about ChatGPT in particular, AI in general. And I want to be the adult in the room, have this conversation, and hopefully turn down the noise level. So our cautious tinkerers at this level, they've dipped their toe in and they're now wondering, now what? Really, truly, by now, you're probably thinking this is a great toy. It's a unique distraction. It's a fad. There's a lot of hype. What we teach here, and this is the entire crux of our Greenbelt level, the insight is consistency is way more important than complexity. So we're all about rhythm over hustle. And with our Greenbelt program, under clarity, we want to define and implement and practice a small, repeatable ChatGPT ritual so that you are learning the value of this. Again, if you're trying 1,000 different things, you're going to get burnt out on trying new things. Our goal is to practice one thing, prove to ourselves it makes a good, long-lasting impact, and then do more of the things that work, do less of the things that don't. And so here, our growth mindset is we will transform random experimentation into one or more reliable habits. And we teach people, a lot of people at this level, they say, Jeff, thank you. My challenge is staying consistent. I need a rhythm I can trust. So that's what we're going to cover in the next 50 minutes or so. Now, I just want to give people some context because a lot of people want to jump in at the top and work backwards and say, I'll learn this later. This is a very carefully constructed mastery belt level. And basically, we believe that every stage of mastery is a necessary step. We are all about frequency. We're creating a deliberate rhythm towards true integration and innovation. So our white belt stage 0 is the overwhelmed observer. These are the people who don't know what ChatGPT is. They've heard rumors. Apparently it sneaks into your house at night and eats your children. It doesn't. But basically we're busting the myths that are keeping people from getting started. The worried watcher, they're either worried they're getting left behind or they're worried that they're going to do it wrong. That's the yellow belt stage 1 where we give them some foundational skills. And then we have our orange belt. These are the really skeptical seekers. For accountants, for example, you might be looking at this saying, well, it can't do that, so why bother? Stage 3, the green belt. We're not going to get into the other belts. The green belt is the cautious tinkerer. And this is where we're just looking for little wins, and we're going to create habits around those wins so that either we prove to ourselves this is a tool worth pursuing, or we agree it isn't, and we move on and do other things. So again, these are the common questions I hear on our weekly calls. We have a live call. And so I've distilled the 10 biggest, most common questions. And really, truly, these are things that are either there's myths that are holding you back, there's mistakes that are tripping you up, and then some of these are best practices that I will share so that you can move forward. And my favorite question here, again, at the Greenbelt level, we're just starting to get some confidence. So we need reassurance that we are, in fact, doing this. So question 1, how do I know if I'm using AI the right way or just getting lucky? Now, I will share my experience. And if you can relate to this, great. If not, congratulations. I spent the first 3-4 months where I was using ChatGPT occasionally. Most of my time was spent thinking I was just getting lucky. It seemed like I was getting some good results, but I had no objective way to test it. I didn't know how to talk to other people about it. And to be honest, I was learning it on my own. So I didn't even have somebody to tell me if I was doing it right, doing it wrong. So I did a lot of trial and error on my own. And the big lesson I learned is have a peer group. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what level you're at. Identify people like you who are trying to learn the things the way that you're trying to learn, and then challenge one another to be better. So I'm a big believer in iron sharpens iron. That's why we created our digital dojo, is so that people can share and get feedback. And in our world, there's no judgment. Feedback is feedback. We're helping one another improve. Now, a lot of people are easily offended. They don't want honest feedback. If you don't like honest feedback, we're not the group for you, because my belief is I need somebody who will look me in the eye and tell me I did something right, or if I did something wrong, why I did it wrong and how I can improve. I want to make sure we're all doing this the right way. Now, in the beginning, I got lucky sometimes, but what I would do, and I encourage all of you, is ask ChatGPT why you're getting the results you're getting. And believe it or not, I personally believe this is the first tool in the history of humanity that can teach us how to use it better. So early on, I said, ChatGPT, I noticed when we communicate, I ask you something, you clarify, and then we get into solving. Help me improve my communication skills. What could I do better to get a better output or outcome from you? So that is really, truly where we want to start, is learning that the two foundational skills to learn ChatGPT in particular is we need to be curious, we need to ask questions, and we need to be better at communicating. So we've built some frameworks. We share those in our theory course, but here we're just looking at, and I'm going to give you an easy benchmark. Pick a thing that you're already an expert in and ask ChatGPT to help you solve a problem in that thing, so that you can objectively look at it and say that's a good result or that's a terrible result. Have a conversation with ChatGPT. Use it as a back and forth dialogue. I like this. I don't like that. What questions do you have of me? What questions should I have of you? How do we get this better? So that's where we can prove we're doing it right, not being lucky, is by using it in topics and areas where we already know the answers. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but trust me, if you build the confidence and you can move forward knowing you've done it right, then you will be much faster and you will learn faster and you will commit to this better. Question 2, what's the best way to organize my prompts so I'm not reinventing the wheel every time? Okay, this is a fun question. And really at this level, I will tolerate questions about prompts. At this level, we start to talk about frameworks. And as we go forward, we'll start to get into those more and more. But basically, you will find there are certain prompts that achieve certain things. So what I do, and I really encourage you to do this as well. And by the way, my number one favorite use case is to create standard operating procedures. So what I do is I create my standard operating procedures, and I include in that procedure the human steps and the prompts for ChatGPT. So basically, and again, start with things you know well so that you can say, yeah, that's a good response, or, oh God, that's terrible. But basically, what we do is we organize it either by role or by function or by system or by process. build your own prompt library in a way that works for you. Now, personally, I hate things out of context. I hate having to look for things. So if I'm working on a specific role in my business or a specific project, I have a quick link where I can go in and I can see anything prompt related. I use a combination. I'm a Google person. I have a combination of spreadsheets with links to my Google Docs. But basically, we teach this, and I encourage you, start a document at first. I don't care if it's a text document, whatever it is. The key is start with something you can easily copy and paste. Once you get a little more sophisticated, I actually have a library of processes that I'm building. And when it's time to do a thing, I actually have a file that I upload, and ChatGPT follows my process. My prompts are built in, but basically start simple. Something you can copy and paste, whether it's a Word document, a Google Doc. You will get fancier over time. Start simple. Question 3. How do I get consistent results instead of totally random outputs? This is, again, where we, in the dojo, we practice consistency, we practice optimization. So I will share, I create standard operating procedures for everything. So if I do something once, I don't worry about the SOP. If I do something twice and I know there's a third time, I will take the time to build an SOP to optimize it. Anything I do daily or weekly or even monthly, I've got a standard operating procedure so that I can get it done quickly. And believe it or not, it's knowing what I know, knowing what I do repeatedly, and then taking the time to create the leverage so I get those things done consistently. So I have a process for creating processes. And yes, say that 3 times fast. It gets a little head spinning. But basically what I do, more or less, is every process that I create has a set of standard inputs. What do I need in order to do this thing? Then I have my actual process steps. What are the steps that I need to do? And by the way, that includes me as the human, plus my colleague ChatGPT. So this is where, as we talked about in question 2, I might have the prompt that I would copy and paste, or series of prompts. And I will do some demos. We do that in our dojo all the time. But basically, we have the steps that we follow. So the third thing in my process for creating a process is I need to understand the quality control. What are the KPIs I will be measuring to make sure my outputs are good? Again, nothing is subjective. It's got to be objectively good. So we have to meet certain metrics. And then I have a feedback loop. That's step 4. How do I get feedback from me, the users, the community, whatever feedback I need? How do I get it? And then based on the quality control and the feedback, I might go back and repeat some of the steps in my process. I might tweak my inputs. And then the final thing is I generate the outputs, and I have a clear list of what I expect is a good output and what that looks like, so that over time I'm consistently generating good results. Now, this is also a great time to remind you, if you hear me say this once, you'll hear me say it 1,000 times. We're the adults in the conversation. So instead of accepting whatever output ChatGPT gives us, we need to be critical. We need to look at it and say, what could I do to improve? Question 4. This one is fun. I hear this a lot. How do I avoid overthinking prompts and just start doing? So there are 2 stumbling blocks here, and I'm going to tackle both of them. Ironically, they both come from the same concern and they produce very different results. So the first type of overthinking is really, really underthinking. It's where people just type a sentence and then they hope for the best. They'll say, "Hey, ChatGPT, give me a blog post." That's the extreme. And then the other absolute extreme, so that's the extreme minimal prompt, which I think is underthinking, now that I overthink it and think about it. But on the other extreme is overthinking, where somebody will put a 10-page prompt, they'll copy and paste it. It's a long, lengthy one. And the irony is there's a sweet spot. So if you're on the extreme and your prompts are too short, you're going to get garbage. On the extreme, if your prompts are too long and they're not clear and they're not vague, you're going to eventually get gibberish. So the spectrum is garbage all the way to gibberish, but in the middle somewhere is the sweet spot we want to get. So the key is, and this is easy to say, easy to learn, hard to remember, ChatGPT is really truly about two skills. The first skill is curiosity. Are you curious about what you're doing? Are you asking questions? Are you having a dialogue rather than just a one and done prompt? The second critical skill for ChatGPT is communication skills. Are you being clear? Are you stating the purpose? Are you giving it a role? Are you clear on your audience? Are you clear on what success looks like? Have you given it the constraints? Have you given it the guidance of the parameters? Basically, are you clear? So in my humble opinion, and again, don't believe me, test and verify, trust and verify, a series of good conversation points will outperform a single good prompt every single time. The thing is, if you're trying to overthink and be clear and clever with your prompt, you're going to miss the idea that this is about curiosity and clarification. So for the record, I can write long prompts. I have templates of long prompts. I never, ever, ever use them. And really, truly, what we do rather than overthinking the prompts is we focus on training and practicing and having a conversation. If you think about it, if you had a new coworker who doesn't know anything about what you do and your job is to train them, you'd never walk up and say, I need you to go file the quarterly reports with the accounting department by Thursday. Good luck. No, you'd say, okay, we're going to walk through the quarterly reports, what they mean. You're going to give instructions. You're going to give some back and forth. And I want you to always pretend, don't lock me up for this in the loony bin, but I want you to pretend you're having an actual conversation with an actual human. So if you think about a normal conversation, you would say, hey, I'd like you to do this. Normal humans, somebody's going to say, sure, I'd love to. Could you tell me more? So if you think about it, rather than overthinking your prompt, tell ChatGPT, here's what I'm looking to do. I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to ask you for help. What questions would you have for me to get us started? And ChatGPT will ask you some questions, and then you answer those questions and say, okay, ChatGPT, I don't even know what I don't know. What questions should I be asking you? And it is amazing because ChatGPT will give you a list of questions, and then you say, okay, based on what I've shared and your list of questions, how would you answer that? And it is amazing because you're having a conversation with yourself, but you're asking what I don't know, and ChatGPT will tell you what you don't know. And by the way, the next round I usually ask, what are common myths that trip people up? What are common mistakes people make? What are some best practices? So the key to not overthinking your prompts is to remember curiosity and communication. That's it. You don't need to learn coding. You don't need to learn prompt frameworks. You just need to learn to communicate better and to be curious and ask questions. Question 5. What do I do when ChatGPT or AI gives me bad or confusing answers? How do I debug that? And believe it or not, I get that a lot. I just want to say for the record, debug is the wrong word for this question. And what I mean by that, troubleshoot, get feedback, whatever it is, debugging implies that you are coding and you know how to code. So I'm going to share something that really annoyed me when I found out. I will share it knowing it will annoy you. I apologize in advance, but this is about tough love and this is iron sharpening iron. So I'm going to assume you're not delicate. You can take feedback. I say this sincerely and with deep love. Generally speaking, when I'm getting bad or confusing answers, I have to look in the mirror because I've either given bad instructions or I've been confusing in my request. So, and again, we talk about this a lot. By our green belt level, you are focusing on things you're already an expert in so that you know what a good or bad answer looks like. Again, we're here to build confidence. We're here to teach you the skills. I would rather teach you how to troubleshoot something and give feedback based on a subject you're already an expert in. And that might feel a little bit counterintuitive. Let me explain. So if you and I, let's pick a topic randomly in movies, there's always some movie at any given time that talks about a zombie apocalypse. Now, I don't know why human beings are obsessed with zombies. I don't know all the reasons that zombies are created. And I definitely don't know why zombies are always intent on ending humanity. Those are questions I don't care about, and they're also questions I don't know the answer to. So if I ask ChatGPT to help me write a thesis exposition on the impact of zombies, I don't know a good response from a bad response. So to me, that is a terrible conversation to have to build my confidence in the tool. Literally, unless I'm going to do a bunch of research, I don't know if ChatGPT is telling me the truth, if it's giving me best things, or if it is, as does when you give it bad instructions, hallucinating and just telling me what it thinks I want to hear. Now, flipping that around, if I sit down and I talk about how to create a standard operating procedure to eliminate, automate, or delegate a task in my business, I know good, bad, ugly. I know divine. I know terrible. So I always tell people, start with what you know. And honestly, I feel like we've forgotten this as a species right now. There are a lot of people using AI to say nonsense about things they know nothing about. I will say this till I'm blue in the face, garbage in, garbage out. If you're not an expert at something, it will take whatever you know or don't know in this case, amplify it and make it very confident and very loud. But at the end of the day, it's also probably very stupid and wrong. Now, I know I shouldn't use the word stupid, but honestly, anybody who types in and then publicly presents something they have no confidence or knowledge in, I feel like that is literally the definition of stupid. Now, that's the negative side of this, garbage in, garbage out. What I want you to all understand, and this is where we build that confidence and that practice, brilliance in, brilliance out. So if you are brilliant at something and you know it inside out and you know what your voice is and you know your talking points, AI will help you polish that and you will actually come across as more confident, more brilliant. So I'll tell you, when I first discovered ChatGPT, I looked at all the noise online and I went, wow, there's a lot of stupid stuff out here. I threw the tool out before I ever gave it a chance because I didn't want to create stupid content. Well, it turns out I'm capable of stupid content. I can create content about zombie apocalypse and sound really convincing. However, me being me, I choose not to. So what I then do in return or instead is I create good content and I try to create great content on things that I understand. So that's my number one thing is start by building confidence in the things you know. And really, truly, if you can do the things you know better and faster, you can get better results, you can save time, you can invest time, and you can get time back. Why wouldn't you? Or you can spend time, like I said, learning how to do random things you have no confidence in. To me, that feels a little bit like a recipe for disaster. Question 6. Am I spending too much time learning tools instead of solving problems? Full disclosure, the answer is almost always yes. I see this a lot. Human beings, we're addicted to novel, we like new things. And for what it's worth, the AI world is exponentially fast at generating new things that don't necessarily add value, but they're shiny objects to distract us. And so one of the things I see in a lot of my digital dojo people is they're trying to learn too many tools at once, and really truly it just becomes procrastination. We're putting off doing real work by trying to learn new tools. So my advice, and this is a little controversial, some people will take exception, pick one tool and master it until you can prove to yourself, not to me, not to your mom, not to your spouse, whatever. You need to prove to yourself that the one tool is actually making a measurable difference in improving your life. Once you understand that, then you can look at other tools. But this really is a case of focus will beat scatter every time. So as an example, when I first started diving into AI, I think there was a grand total of maybe 30 different tools. I don't know, that seems forever ago, but it was only 2-3 years ago. There weren't that many AI-based tools. Now, fast forward, there are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of tools. And the reality is you can dabble in each of these tools. One of my favorite Bruce Lee quotes is that he doesn't fear the opponent who practices 10,000 skills once. He fears the opponent who practices one skill 10,000 times. So focus, specialization works. And for me, what I realized was I use ChatGPT a lot. It is the tool of choice. And early on, I made the conscious decision, literally, my brain was starting to fracture and splinter. I was going crazy. I was trying to learn every tool. And when Claude came out, I tried Claude. When Perplexity came out, I had a Perplexity account. Literally, I was going crazy with all of these new logins and new signups and so on. But what I realized is when I'm using a tool like ChatGPT, and this is modern, unique to AI, I'm training the tool on how to work better with me, and the tool is training me on how to work better with it. So what I realized was, for me personally, ChatGPT, Pareto principle here, solved 80% of my problems with 20% of the effort. So what I realized was the better I get at ChatGPT, the faster I'm going to solve my problems, the quicker I'm going to generate results, and we move forward. So I decided to master ChatGPT rather than dabble in 10,000 tools. Now, for the record, I can have an intelligent sounding conversation about a lot of other tools, but I will never, ever talk about, right now, here's how you implement this or that. I don't care. There's a lot of talk about AI with video, with audio, with images. That's not my field. I don't care. So people want to say, well, you say you're an expert at AI, you should know this. No, I'm a master of ChatGPT. There's a difference. And by the way, if somebody doesn't know the difference between mastering ChatGPT and being an expert in AI, it's literally the difference between I've read a book and I know the contents of that book by heart versus I own a library and I know that I've got books in here somewhere, but I don't know what they are. AI is a massive field. ChatGPT is a subset of generative AI. There's other fields as well. So, short answer, yes, you're spending too much time learning tools. Pick one problem and then find the right tool to solve the problem. So the mindset shift here, it's a subtle one. We're in the business of solving problems, not learning tools. Therefore, the problems determine the tools we need, not the other way around. In the old days, the adage was when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Here, we're looking at the problems first and then picking the right tool for that problem. Question 7. How do I find the balance between automation and my own creativity? This is actually an interesting question. And, sometimes people say, using AI, the big lie that I'm hearing right now, and this is said loud and long and far, the myth is that AI destroys creativity. Now, for the record, I believe creativity, like thinking, is a muscle that we can flex and we can try it out. We can build it up in strength, or we can get lazy and it'll atrophy. So what I mean by that is if you go into ChatGPT and you type in your sentence saying, ChatGPT, I need a book, please write a book for me. I would argue that that is the ultimate in lazy. ChatGPT is absolutely an easy button for being lazy. However, if you're listening to this course, I'm going to assume that you are not lazy, and I'm also going to assume that you care about the quality of the output. So there's a lot of people that teach different ways to do creative stuff with ChatGPT. And for the record, writing a shareholder report that holds people's attention, to me, that's creativity. So I am not going to get into the philosophy of creating music or art or anything like that. But creativity, in my humble opinion, is being curious about what you do and finding ways to do it better. So the creativity is in the improvement, not necessarily in the output. So again, you might be an accountant who writes special reports for clients. There's an element of creativity in that. So the way I look at it, I look at AI of any sort as a tool. And so the question is, does this tool allow me to produce a better output, yes or no? If the answer is yes, then I'm looking at automation. If the answer is no, then why would I even look at it? Now, the other thing I use is a concept I call eliminate, automate, delegate. So I'm always looking at the mundane and the things that annoy me, they're time consuming, drive me crazy. What can I eliminate? Of the things I can't eliminate, what can I automate? And this is where we get into systems and workflow. So I like to automate all the things that are not in my, I call it zone of genius. You can call it whatever you want. I want to eliminate or automate or delegate the things that I can't do any better than someone else. So if I'm an expert at one area, I want to find the happy medium. It's eliminating, automating, delegating all of the mundane or the simple or the easy stuff that someone else can do for me so that I'm just focused on my zone of genius right at that moment. So a lot of people are worried that automation takes away creativity. My approach is, how do I get rid of the things that distract me so that I can focus on my zone of genius and expand and explore my own personal creativity? So the difference here is using ChatGPT to replace yourself and basically checking out of it versus using ChatGPT to refine your skills. So to me, that is the balance. The other thing I will say is that automation and technology in general should free up space and time so that you can enhance relationships. It should never replace the relationships you have with your team or with your clients. It should instead find ways to remove friction from those relationships. So think of AI and automation in general more as the lubricant that smooths the interaction between parts of your machine rather than replacing the interaction with the humans. And by the way, anything mission critical that involves humans and relationships, I personally do not believe there's room in automation for that other than reminders to make sure I do what I said I would do. Question 8. What if my first attempts look amateurish? Should I share them or keep experimenting privately? The answer to this is always it depends. So if you are a professional and you are trying to do something professional, I would encourage you to collaborate with a team indoors. I always say have a peer group, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's people in your profession, whatever it is, have a peer group and celebrate the wins, even the I finished it, but it looks like garbage. This is, I think, the myth of the modern day that every first attempt should be perfection. I guarantee if you look back at the great artists of history, whether it's musical composers, authors, playwrights, even painters, and so on, their first attempts all looked amateurish. I know for a fact, I've studied him, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo for that matter. They agonized and practiced and practiced. They drew things, they studied things, and then finally the finished outcome looked brilliant. If you don't believe me, the Sistine Chapel took approximately 17 years to paint. He wasn't worried about quick, he was worried about doing it right. So celebrate the ugly, celebrate the misfires. But I would say, generally speaking, always experiment privately first, test it, and make sure it works. But share it early, share the imperfect. It's like a chef making a meal. Before they put the sauce on the main course, they're going to test it to make sure it's not too salty. You always have a better result if you do this with peers and, again, challenge yourself to be better. So here I will repeat my 2 key ingredients. You need to be curious and you need to communicate. So one of the things I would do is share my weird looking thing with my colleagues and say, hey, anybody else getting something like this? And believe it or not, I have little groups where we share our prompting, our conversations, and we'll look at it. And I can tell you within a couple of lines, hey, if you would change this to that, you'd get a better output. So that's what we're looking for, is feedback from others. And by the way, this is one of my first attempts at figuring things out. I would go back and forth with ChatGPT. I would create an output. And then at the end, I would say, ChatGPT, I was expecting more of this, less of that. You seem to have gone down this road. What could I have done differently to get more of this and less of that? And basically, I'm using ChatGPT as a sparring partner to get better at using ChatGPT. Now, to be clear, that is a great start in terms of communication and curiosity, but you will not learn everything until you start to practice and share your ideas and insights with other human beings. So if you've got a peer group, in your organization, great. If you don't, maybe you have a professional association. Always find a group of people like you who can challenge you and help you be better. Question 9. How could I track what's working so I can actually improve? This is ultimately the heart of everything we do at the Digital Dojo. And I love this question because it's no longer about should I use ChatGPT. We're starting to get into how do I use ChatGPT to do my work better. So I can rant about this particular topic all day long, but believe it or not, I was inspired by elementary school science. I can't remember, I was in either grade 3 or 4 when I learned about the scientific method. I don't know why, but that particular lesson has stuck with me. A lot of people say you never use the things you learn in school. I don't know if I should admit it, but the thing I've used the most is the scientific method. And believe me, I was excited when both of my kids going through elementary school came home and said, Dad, we're learning the scientific method. Yay. So I'm not going to beat the scientific method down, teach you everything you need to know about it. But more or less, the idea is you have background information. Here's what we know. Then you form a hypothesis and say, here's what we think will happen. And then you design an experiment and you make 1 or 2 minor changes, or you can do 1 major change. It's up to you. But basically, the experiment is meant to either prove or disprove your hypothesis and give you data so that you can improve. Now, that sounds a little bit like professor speak. I apologize. Basically, what we're going to do is say, here's what we're doing today. Here's what works about it. Here's what friction we have. How do we improve it? And by the way, if you've not read The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber, it is one of my early days must-read books. The E-Myth Institute, or whatever it was called, Michael Gerber's coaching and consulting group, they teach a process called the key frustration process. And it is absolutely my favorite foundation for scientific method and for experimentation. Basically, what you do is you list the things in your business that are frustrating or annoying you, and then you look at them to see, and again, I'm doing this off the top of my head, basically you're looking to see if it's a people problem, a process problem, or something else. And spoiler alert, it's almost always a process problem. And that's where you can use ChatGPT. You can document the process you're following today. You can ask ChatGPT using the scientific method, help me create an experiment to improve this. And always ask, what are the KPIs I should be measuring so that I do, in fact, know that it's working. And then you implement 1 change, wait and see. Test it. Implement another change, reformulate your hypotheses, test it again. So I see this as a series of tweaks rather than a major overhaul. Now, if your approach is to throw everything out, burn it down, and start over, good for you, not my approach. In my humble opinion, if you do that, you throw out the things that some of them might have been working, you just don't know what. It's like saying my car ran out of gas, I'm going to throw it out and get a new one. If you troubleshoot a little and you realize I just need more gas, magically the whole car works again. I don't need to start pulling parts of the engine out. I don't need to throw the car away. So one of the things that I do in my life, and I've taught my kids this, solve the easiest problem first and then solve the next and the next. So as an example, my boys, and believe it or not, my wife as well, they know for a fact, do not come to dad and say, help me with my computer until they can answer the question, is it plugged in? If your computer's not getting power, we're going to look at the cable, we're going to look at the outlet. But really, truly, if the power is the problem, why would I start taking the computer apart until I've proven the power isn't the problem? So your goal is to look for the simple wins, the cheap, the quick, the easy, and then we get into the big and the complex. But basically, in my world with Pareto principle, 80% of the time the problem is solved by a simple fix. So that's what I do. I look for the problems, I look for the root cause, and then I build an experiment to solve it. Question 10. When does playing with AI turn into real progress? Now, for the record, this is the question I wish people would ask. Usually, people come to me and ask, when does using ChatGPT turn into real progress? I put the word playing in there on purpose. And really, truly, why I say that is, again, we should be curious and we should be working on our communication skills. So, playing is what I believe we should do with AI. This is not grown up. This is not serious. We shouldn't be too stuffy. I've learned more about AI by playing with it than I've ever learned by working with it. Now, before you throw me out and discount me as being unprofessional, play to me is trying things and seeing what works, what doesn't. Now, I say this sincerely, you cannot break ChatGPT. It has a simple interface. There's a prompt. You ask it a question. You cannot, in any way, shape, or form, blow it up, break it, whatever it is. You can use it wrong. You can use it right, but you can't break it. So for me, that gives me permission to say, what if I do this? What if I do that? So early on, when I was looking to prove to myself that ChatGPT worked, I played with it. So what I would do is take a piece of content that I had written myself, and I would give it roles, and I would say, please rewrite this using the voice of Yoda. Please rewrite this from the perspective of Darth Vader. What would Mork from Ork use to say this? How would he present this? And basically what I did was I played, and what I was doing was, number one, I was getting clear on the roles I was asking ChatGPT to play, and I was also getting clear on how to communicate with AI. So I took it from the perspective, I learn by playing, I learn by doing, knowing that I can't fail and I can't break it. So to me, that's what playing with AI looks like. Now, the real question there, and this is the question that everyone should be asking, is how do I get progress using AI? And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You need to be curious. You need to ask ChatGPT questions. You need to have it ask you questions, and you need to communicate. So those are the two secret ingredients: curiosity and communication. And think about how you have a conversation with a friend, a colleague. Literally, I treat this like I would a conversation across the table at a coffee shop with a friend. Maybe it's a podcast interview. I'm often asking my guests questions. Sometimes they're asking me clarifying questions. The key is it's a conversation. It's a dialogue. It should be about going back and forth. So that's the prefix or the premise of this. Real progress is what you define, and I promise you, the faster you understand what you actually want from it, the faster you'll get real results. So again, if you're an expert at writing blog posts and your topic of choice is, I don't know, zombie apocalypse, you will see results when you write a post using ChatGPT. And I can't stress this enough, it's a collaborative effort back and forth. When you write a post that either makes you feel something, either you laugh out loud because, wow, I'm clever, or you get teared up a little because you feel sad. But when you feel that what you wrote is actually deeply and personally resonant with you, that's when you're starting to see progress. So when you stop treating it like a vending machine, you start creating things with it as a tool, that's when you're going to see that real progress. Now, I want to thank everybody who is taking this course, and I will just say very quickly, I'm not going to talk about this in detail. We have a 10-stage program. Full disclosure, you can, if you want, find all 10 stages for free all over the internet. We've got these on YouTube. We've got them on LinkedIn, on our website. The theory and the frequently asked questions is my gift to the world to help people make better choices. Believe it or not, I'm just tired of bad conversations about ChatGPT. I want the villagers to put down their pitchforks and put their torches away. We don't need to burn anybody to the ground who uses AI. And I also don't want people to pay for the snake oil of AI just to get results. So our content is for free. And one of my students, very practical question, why would I pay you when I can get your stuff for free? Great question. The thing is, it's the difference between reading a book and watching a video. You get my ideas at that point in time, and you learn the theory, and you get your questions answered, but we're not practicing and applying it together. And I promise you, it is fun, and it is highly effective if you learn in a group. So that's the difference. You can watch all this content for free, or you can join the group, and you can learn how to apply it. Now, I'm an entrepreneur. I am all about making more money, having more impact, saving time. To me, the fastest way to learn something is by working with others who want to learn the same thing. So if you'd like to learn more, you can join the Pharos Digital Dojo. Our website is pharosbusiness.com/digital-dojo. I will put a link at the end of the video. Thank you for your time, and good luck implementing ChatGPT firmly into your business and your workflows. If you haven't experimented with optimizing your workflows, let's have a conversation, because that's where it gets really powerful and really fast.